Hello, I'm Christopher Herring. I'm the Executive Director of Global Chamber San Antonio, and welcome to our Globinar. Today, our Globinar is going to talk about how do we scale second stage companies. And today I have a great panel that's with us. I have Jane Gonzalez, who is going to be the star and who will really show us the way with this concept of second stage companies. We have Chris Cassange, and Marcel Johnson, as well as the founder of Global Chamber, Doug Brunke. I want to jump right in because I know that we're going to have a lot of discussion in today's Globinar. And I want you to know that today's event really is important because we're talking about how do we help to save companies, especially during this time of COVID-19. And Jane Gonzalez has put a lot of thought into this conversation. And so I want for Jane to get us rolling. Take it away, Jane.
Thank you, Christopher. And once again, I want to thank everybody for participating in this panel. It's very important to me, and thank you. So what we're going to do today, we're going to talk about second stage companies, leveraging the power of local entrepreneurship. We're doing the introductions. We'll have an overview of second stage companies. I'll be doing that, Jane Gonzalez. We'll be setting the stage for success. And I'm very, very happy that Christopher Cassange from Louisiana is going to speak about a program that they implemented that's related to second stage companies. And Marcel Johnson will share with us activities at Port San Antonio. Mr. Doug Brunke will discuss the Global Chamber resources. Christopher Herring will talk about some of the next steps, and then we'll have a conclusion. So my name is Jane Gonzalez, and I've been in business for 15 years. We are a medical supplier, medical equipment supplier, and we actually pivoted to PPE during this COVID-19. And I want to make it clear that my company is located in a marginalized community because I believe that besides just operating a business, I want to make a difference in the lives of people that surround my business, especially when there's a lot of poverty and minorities. Okay, so let's talk about second stage companies. What is all this fuss about? Why does Jane keep talking about these second stage companies? What, you know, and I'm very excited that there is a lot of conversation in the United States right now. Florida, Louisiana, we're going to hear from Louisiana, California, that are specifically and deliberate with second stage companies. The definition is they are typically a for-profit and privately held business. And this is really important. What is really important about a second stage company? We have moved beyond startup and have the appetite and the aptitude to continue. What that means is that second stage companies have the desire to scale. We have the desire to move into the next level in our stage. Typically, they have 1 million to 50 million of revenue, 10 to 99 employees. And what we're going to talk about today are going to be the intentions and sometimes the coincidence of the investments that are being made to second stage companies. Okay, so why is second stage companies so important? Why is Louisiana, why is Florida, why is New York? Why are they putting so much energy, investments, and money? And the reason is this: according to the Edward Lowe Foundation, from 2005 to 15, second stage companies represented only 17% of all companies, yet they generate 1/3 of all jobs and 1/3 of sales. We are considered the workhorses of the US economy because of the impact, economic impact. So imagine these second stage companies in the middle of COVID-19, where many of us are located in marginalized communities, where families are being devastated, losing jobs, you know, they have a hopeless situation. And we are actually, by keeping our doors open, we bring hope to a hopeless situation. On the right side here, well, the message that we're going to bring today and what we want to get across is that growth is never by mere chance. It is a result of forces working together to achieve deliberate outcomes. And we'll have Christopher from Louisiana be a little bit more elaborate on that statement. So here's something that really touches my heart. It's really close to me. When we see the impact of COVID-19 to small minority business, 48% have severe negative impact. And then you have 46% that have moderate negative impact. And so I just think that it's really, really important for those small minority businesses that right now are surviving or marginally surviving, that we can then be more deliberate and making sure that those doors don't close. We already lost 100,000 small businesses to bankruptcy. And this is why, this is the passion that I have in ensuring that we can prevent more damage.
Did you want me to go ahead now, Jane?
Yes.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. And let me just say, Jane, that certainly personally in the state of Louisiana echoes your comments related to the hardships that have fallen upon all of our companies, particularly small businesses and those in diverse categories. COVID-19 and as well as in Louisiana, we've had 5 named storms make landfall on our coast this year. So certainly 2020 has presented multiple challenges, and I'm for one looking forward to 2021, more positive outlook. But first off, let me say thank you to you, Jane, the folks at the Global Chamber, and my fellow panelists this afternoon for allowing me to join. It's my privilege. My name is Chris Kassan. I'm the Assistant Director of the Small Business Services Division at Louisiana Economic Development. I've been around for about 6 years at the agency. My background is I was born and raised in New Orleans, moved to Baton Rouge about 10, 11 years ago or so, which is the capital here in Louisiana. Undergrad at LSU and a master's in business administration as well from LSU. And I'm very happily employed at Louisiana Economic Development and a civil servant. You can get to the next slide, Jane. So let me start with kind of a high-level overview of I mentioned with the State Agency for Economic Development, LED, Louisiana Economic Development, and I'm the Assistant Director of the Small Business Services Division, which is just one division within LED. We have 9 integrated economic development strategies across the agency, small business economic development being one of those. Now, if I drill a little bit deeper into the Small Business Services Division, our programming, and we have many resources that you can read about at opportunitylouisiana.com, where everything is housed, our website. But drilling down into our specific division, our resources really fall into 3 buckets or 3 categories, if you will. One, we have programming designed to build capacity. The second, we have certifications and resources designed to increase opportunity. And third, and this is the bucket that I primarily work in, that my focus as Assistant Director is on, and that's accelerating growth. We have a number of programs specifically designed to accelerate the growth of that second stage business profile that Jane just mentioned. You can go ahead to the next slide, Jane. So I won't spend a whole lot of time on this slide since Jane gave a very good overview of what a second stage company is. I just want to point out that, and you mentioned the Edward Lowe Foundation, and we agree that second stage is defined as $1 million to 50 million in revenue, and 10 employees up to about the 100 employee threshold. I just want to point out that here in Louisiana, we like the word flexibility. We always like to be flexible, particularly when you're talking about diversity and things like much of Louisiana is geographically related is rural, especially when you get to the northern part of the state. That's why our definition of second stage has a little bit of flexibility in it, where typically the companies that we're targeting have those thresholds that I've mentioned, the 10 on the lower end and the million in revenue. But we actually go a little bit lower with our thresholds, down to 5 full-time equivalent employees and 600,000 in annual gross revenue. Again, because we don't want to deny a resource to a company if it makes sense and there's an economic development aspect to it. So I just wanted to point that out, that our profile of second stage is perhaps a little bit more flexible to that end. You can go on to the next slide, Jane. So here's where I want to spend, and this is why Jane asked me to join you all today. I want to spend the bulk of my time here really sharing Louisiana's story, specific to my focus at the agency, which again is on the second stage profile. In that story, I'll give you the kind of commercial version, because I know we're tight on time here and we have other speakers after me, but it started really in 2010, 2011, where we convened a group of partners, some of the usual characters, the small business development centers, our PTAC, some of our regional economic development organizations, and took an inventory basically of the resources that we had to offer the small business community. And the result of that meeting and that convening was basically the identification of a gap. We had a gap in the resources that we were providing. There's a whole lot of resources out there, as all of you know, for our early stage startup companies and organizations that focus on that profile of small business. And on the other hand, there's a lot of incentives and headlines, and you read about it in the news all of the time for our large economic driver companies. But there was a gap in terms of what we had to offer that second stage profile that Jane and I just explained. So we identified that gap, and as a result of that meeting and the identification of that gap in resources, we were ultimately connected with the Edward Lowe Foundation that you mentioned. They are a national nonprofit organization based in Cassopolis, Michigan, that their whole mission is related to second stage companies. So we were connected with them, and shortly after, in 2011, we launched our first pilot program targeting second stage companies. It was called Economic Gardening, and we ran 33 companies through that initial pilot program. You know, why 33? Well, we have 8 regional economic development regions or organizations within the state of Louisiana, and each of them got 4 slots, plus we had a bonus one. So that's how we got to the 33. But what we did afterwards is we met with each and every one of those companies and asked them, hey, look, how was the program? What else can we provide to you? The initial feedback was extremely positive. It was the programming was very impactful to their businesses, and they were growing as a result. What else came out of that meeting was that they also expressed a desire to have a platform whereby they could connect with one another and the government could kind of get out of the way, and they could share experiences with one another. That's why we launched in 2015 our initial CEO Roundtable program. Now, the CEO Roundtables are hosted at the regional level. We also have virtual CEO Roundtables, but that was the second program that we launched. Then, you know, every good story, if you will, has a tipping point or an inflection point. And for us in Louisiana, it was around 2016, 2017. And basically what happened was we started compiling some of these metrics, looking at some of these results, in addition to having conversations with these companies that were leveraging the resources. And the results were very clear. And I'll share with you the two programs that I've mentioned thus far, economic gardening. Our metrics to date, we have 239 companies that have gone through that program. And those companies collectively have created over 2,000 jobs. This is new full-time equivalent jobs, 2,053 jobs, and they've increased their sales by 349 million, which equates to a return on investment of over $9 and $9.07 in ROI for every $1 that the state has invested in that program. In addition to that, the CEO roundtables, another 277 companies have added 1,313 new jobs, equating to a return on investment of $7.84. So getting back to my point, the metrics were very impressive when we started to collect this and run the numbers. In addition to that, I will say in 2016, we also had a new incoming administration around that time, and under the leadership and the support of Governor John Bel Edwards and our Secretary, Don Pearson. You know, it's always nice to have allies in your corner at the top of the shop that believe in small business economic development and to have their support. So what we did, based on those metrics, based on the support from the administration that we were enjoying, we had strategic meetings with the Edward Lowe Foundation with the intent of, hey, look, what we're doing so far is working. We want to do more. So the result of those strategic meetings with the Edward Lowe Foundation, I'll run through this and give you a snapshot of what we have today. And you can see it here on the slide, is that now we have an alumni network that consists of over 400, and this is, by the way, this is as of January 1st. It's closer to 500 companies now, and those metrics are even bigger. But as of January 1st, it was 425 companies representing over 15,500 jobs and 3.3 billion in annual sales. If you would look at, it's 425 companies, but a single company that would employ that many jobs and generate that much in annual revenue would be extremely impactful and very closely looked upon. In addition to that alumni network, we've also built out a complete, what we call suite of resources. And again, this is specifically tailored to that second stage profile. We have customized leadership retreats. We do at least one annually with the LED Growth Network companies, where we send some of them up to the Edward Lowe Foundation to work on rather than in their business. We have an annual networking event called Spotlight Louisiana, where all of these companies from across the state come to the Capitol and we enjoy networking. We also have 10 annual awards called our Louisiana Growth Leader Award that are presented to a certain select group of the companies. We've launched the System for Integrated Growth program in partnership with the Edward Lowe Foundation. And just this year, we, even as trying as 2020 has been, we've launched 4 new COVID-19 virtual CEO roundtables consisting of about 60 companies, 3 virtual leadership retreats, and we've also launched the new American Academy of Entrepreneurs, which is a mentoring program. There's 8 mentees that are on the upper end of the second stage spectrum, coupled with 8 mentees that are on in the earlier stages of second stage. And the whole focus is to get them connected and work on items that are going to get the mentees to the next level of growth that they're looking to accomplish. To wrap up, I want to. It absolutely is. But we're not finished yet. We're building this thing out brick by brick, as we call it. But we're not done building the entire house. We've got work to do. We're always going to look to continue innovating and finding new resources out there in order to accelerate the growth of our second stage business community in Louisiana. That's what this is all about. In fact, in 2021, in January, we've got a brand new program that's going to actually combine some aspects of some of these resources that I've mentioned with leadership retreats and virtual CEO roundtables and a strategic research engagement. We're going to combine those elements together and streamline it and provide that all together to a small cohort of about 16 businesses that are second stage and in rural parts of Louisiana. We're very excited about that program. The best mentor that I ever had, he was my former boss in economic development. And this is kind of the culture that we live by in small business services at LED. He used to always tell me, say, Chris, if you do today what you did yesterday, you're going to be out of business tomorrow. And we always try to live by that. We always try to push the needle and identify what's the next best resource that's going to accelerate the growth of our companies. In closing, I'll leave you with just a couple of quick thoughts. We obviously, if you can't tell, we believe in second stage in Louisiana. We bought into the entire premise. Jane, you threw out those statistics earlier. I can tell you that in Louisiana, it's actually a lower percentage of establishments that qualify as second stage. It's about 15.5%, but they actually generate a higher percentage of the overall jobs at just under 40%. So you got 15% of establishments generating about 40% of the net new jobs. Very impactful profile of company. The second thing I'll say is that relationships and trust, particularly within the business community, are absolutely key. The business community and the companies that we serve are our most important stakeholders. We have many. When you talk about all of the organizations that we partner with, both contractually, non-contractually, the administration, the legislature, we have a bunch of stakeholders. But if you lose trust with the business community, it's game over. So always follow up, follow through. And then the last point that I want to make is very important, that anybody that's looking to any community, whether it be at the local level, the regional level, the state level, as in the case of Louisiana economic development, we've been at this for, as I mentioned, since about 2010. We've been at this for almost a decade, 10 years. It didn't happen overnight. We started with a single program. It took a few years to launch the second program, and it took a few years after that to really understand the value, build the reputation that we needed in order to blow this thing out of the water. It's almost like to steal I hadn't had lunch yet, so to steal a cooking reference, it takes a good pot of gumbo takes a long time to simmer, and it's kind of the same principle as we live by. It can't all get done at one time. You got to give it time, and you got to build the rapport with the business community. But at the end of the day, you can look back and say that, hey, look, it might have not been 1,000 jobs all at once or two, some big announcement, but collectively we made a big difference in our communities and as the state of Louisiana collectively. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next
Jane?
up, next up is going to be Mr. Marcel Johnson, VP of Port San Antonio.
Good afternoon, everyone, and Chris and Jane, thank you all for the opportunity to talk a little bit about Port San Antonio and what we're doing that I think serves in some respects that could be a model, could be an example to help other communities, EDOs, and the like grow second stage businesses. First up, I've only got a few slides, but when we talk about Port San Antonio here lately, we've started to kind of change our characterization of who we are, and we refer to ourselves as a tech port because it more fairly describes who we are and what we do on our campus. A few years ago, we embarked on a strategy, and I think Chris's comment about, hey, if you're doing the same thing today that you did yesterday, then you'll soon be out of business tomorrow. And I think we operate from that same spirit because we have made dramatic changes in how we approach economic development on this campus compared to the first few years that I was here. So just you know, for us, and if you go to the next slide, Chris, when we talk about our campus, well, first up, I agree that I think all small business owners want what we would say greater access to potential buyers and sellers. I mean, and frankly, that's the driver behind our campus vision and development strategy. Our goal was to connect up a lot of the different technologies and capabilities of the companies that are on our campus, many of whom are small, with the larger entities and government entities that are also on our campus. We recognized a large divide, if you will, a separation, and it wasn't intentional, but that's just how it emerged. Many of our government customers and larger businesses tend to operate behind closed fences, secured gates, but nevertheless, on the flip side, they're asking, hey, or expressing interest in the latest technologies. They want to know where's the talent, where are the innovators. And many of they admit that a lot of the innovation that they are seeking come from small businesses. And that's who they want to partner with and see to a greater extent. So our vision is to not only connect up these communities and to provide strategic networking, linkages, and the like, but to also provide facilities where a lot of that can occur, support actual vehicles, if you will, contract vehicles, ways in which rapid contracting can occur between government entities and local businesses or any businesses, and also provide a forum and a place where smaller businesses can be in front of what we will, if you will, larger buyers of their wares. And we do this through a variety of means. Again, Chris mentioned what they do in Louisiana and some of the ways in which they provide strategic networking and spotlighting, regions, but we do similar. We spotlight the capabilities of the companies that are here. We talk less about who we are and what we have to offer from a real estate standpoint, but we really highlight the technologies because frankly, we live in a world where frankly, everything is driven by technology. A lot of these technologies are connected in many ways. And so we're trying to demonstrate and provide the means to show how these technologies connect up. So what you have here, nothing fancy, it's just a simple activation. It's an example that I want to show. It's a trade show that we attended about a year and a half ago. Aviation Week has a large maintenance, repair, and overhaul show for aircraft, for the aircraft maintainers industry. We have traditionally exhibited there, but in 2019, we decided let's do something different. Instead of talking about us, let's invite some of our tenants, our customers, primarily small, a few of whom were small businesses, to go and have an audience among these exhibitors. Now the catch is, a couple of the folks who joined us, the company said they had no interest. They didn't see the aviation industry as a target first up. But when we got there, I'm going to highlight one in the upper left corner, a company called Reckon Point. That little robot, it looks like a little device on 4 wheels. That is an indoor navigation mapping system. The owner of the company has a background in sensors technology and radar, LiDAR, things. Basically, this tool was developed to, do rapid scanning and measurements throughout buildings. That little piece of equipment, if you will, caught the eye of the people at the conference. This little small company here in San Antonio, about a year later, less than a year later, they were featured as highlighted as one of 8 technologies poised to transform the aviation industry around the globe. Why? Because people saw, hey, there's something there that we might be able to use for something other than what the owner intended. Again, exposure to markets, exposure to opportunities. I see Chris flip the slide, so that tells me I need to either speed up in what I'm talking about, or he just wasn't interested in what I was saying before. I will speed up then. I'm highlighting and giving an example of these companies for a reason. I say the port, we can do some things that frankly are a little different from what maybe some other entities can. We actually own a small piece of property, 1,900 acres that we manage. So as a landlord, you know, we obviously do what a landlord does, but we take on a different mission as well to support those companies' growth, because frankly, our biggest interest is in seeing jobs created on the campus. We realize many states can't do that. Municipalities may not be able to do that. But in our minds, hey, this is what we're doing differently to be able to give an audience and give opportunities for small businesses to connect up with opportunities. Plus One Robotics is another one. They were at that conference with us as well. Their story is they're a group of engineers who have less than a few years old, but they're now providing products and services using their, if you will, cognitive robots that are FedEx is now commissioned and are deploying worldwide. Again, from here, from San Antonio, but it was a matter of, again, giving them an audience and helping them tell their story to a broader audience. So one takeaway, if you will, you know, we realize small businesses have, you know, second stage businesses have limited resources to some extent. Maybe they don't have sophistication in their marketing, but to the extent the community and economic development organization, if they want to take an active role in growing a second stage business, perhaps you can do some things differently by helping to tell their stories to the audiences in which, you know, the economic developers engage. There's no real magic in what I'm describing, but there is a certain tried and true success that I can point to, at least here on this campus over the past 3 years. We've seen more than 4,500 new jobs come to this campus as a result, and since launching this strategy. And now, like I say, part of what we're doing is to build out areas, because we can, but where a lot of engagement can be facilitated. Again, not just networking, but prototyping, showcasing their wares, and even allowing for industry days between government and local businesses. So with that, I'll stop. Happy to answer questions about the port, but just know that we too, oh, I forgot I did have another slide about Knight Aerospace. Again, company that came in this property a year ago, they're now doing business globally. They have a very cool, and what's now important, technology that's since COVID, they have a, it's a modular unit that the Royal Canadian Air Force is one of their early customers. But basically what it does, it's a bio-containment modular unit that it's used in a variety of capacities, but in this case, it's used to quarantine or segregate people who may have been exposed to disease or something like that. But it latches into a cargo aircraft. So now you have the ability to transport people who may be critically ill, who may need critical care while in flight. And they can do so in an environment that's equipped with the latest medical equipment and practitioners who can care for those that need it. Cool thing about this modular unit is when the people arrive on the ground, that unit comes out. The entire aircraft does not have to be sanitized, but the unit does, but the unit can be reused over and over again. So again, technology developed here for a different purpose years ago, but now being deployed and applied elsewhere. So again, the benefit of community is that you get to interact, collaborate, and the more we tell our stories, the more we realize, hey, we live in a really connected world, but the uses and the capabilities of our technologies can go far beyond what maybe some of the practitioners originally imagined.
So next up, we're going to have Mr. Doug Brunke, and I've had such a pleasure really working with him through the Global Chamber and Christopher Herring with, here in San Antonio. Doug, thank you so much for joining us, and it's all yours.
Thank you, Jane. It's a pleasure to work with you. It's inspiring. Love what you're doing, both with your company and in the community. It's rare to see somebody who has the bandwidth and the passion to be able to be successful in business and then also have enough left over to give back to the community. And so thank you for being a constant inspiration to all of us. And I appreciate the opportunity also to speak today. I wanted to cover a couple things relative to some of the opportunities, some of the challenges, and then what are maybe a couple steps that you can take going forward to be more successful in whatever you're doing. First of all, the opportunity is grand. It's amazing. 85% of business in the next 5 years is going to happen outside the US. So that's 15% only in the US. Back in the quote unquote good old days, US was maybe half of the world's economy, and maybe it was okay to be a local company and not take advantage of that. But with only 15% of the world's trade expected to be in the US going forward, it really is the time to take advantage. We're doing actually an event right now about doing international business, and that it's easy. And so those of us that have been involved with international business for, like in my case, 33 years, the concept of international business being easy is a little bit of a reach. I would say it's not easy, but it is a lot easier when you take certain steps and you take a professional approach. I think Chris was talking a little bit about that as well. If you do it right, and you're able to balance a lot of balls in the air, then you're going to be successful. And because the market is so large around the world, success in that realm could take you right from second stage right to the next level. So definitely encourage you to think about it. There are some challenges. And so for a second stage company, invariably, there are holes in the organization. In fact, always there are holes. Don't feel bad about it. Don't be ashamed. It's a normal thing that you don't have all of the capabilities that a grand company, a big company would have. It's just a reality. So that's your challenge, though, is how do I leverage organizations like what you've heard with Chris and Marcel talk about, or the Global Chamber? How do you leverage resources to be more successful? And I'll explain a little bit more in a sec. Another real challenge right now is the ability to focus. We've got a lot of distractions. You might have noticed, right? 2020 is, a year from Hades, and that we want to get past as fast as we can from a personal and business standpoint. There's just so much going on. How do we now focus in on what's the right thing to do? And so we've been challenged. And so I think one of the old sayings is, if what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. I've got to believe that, we're all stronger because of it. We've got to find ways to get past it. COVID has been a disaster on a global scale, and those of us that survive are going to be stronger because of it. Jane and I were joking earlier about the future is so bright, we've got to wear shades. It's kind of maybe not funny that so many companies are failing, and yet there are opportunities available to many of those. One member I know is a restaurant in Arizona that's an Algerian restaurant, actually, and the pivot for them has been to sell to stores in addition to food and takeout. And so simple pivots like that. You've heard lots about pivoting and a lot about flexibility and a lot about adaptability. It's such a critical thing right now. It's not too late. There's still time to evaluate what's going on in the world, what's going on and what you can provide to the world, and be able to pivot within your business to be successful. And so we always encourage that. How have we approached these challenges at Global Chamber? I'd say mainly in two ways. Number one is warm introductions. So warm introductions mean that there's a trusted element going on, and trust means a lot in today's world. It's not time to run into a big meeting with thousands of people. First of all, we can't do that. And secondly, for many of us, that feels like needle in a haystack, finding opportunities and clients. It's really important to focus. It's really important to work your network. And with Global Chamber, we have a network of over 40 million people that we've developed that are trusted, that are people that we feel good about making a connection, whether it's as a client or a resource. And that's really important right now in today's world. So that's number one in terms of what we think is important and a service that we're providing. And then secondly, events that are helpful. And so the main two are educational. And then the second is connecting. How do we connect people that are trusted and capable and reliable to each other? And so we just had one a couple hours ago, League of Opportunities, sharing opportunities among a trusted network. This is a way of connecting as well. We have a variety of other things like League of Extraordinaries, where we get service providers that are trusted together and build their business referral network. The main thing is, how can you find new opportunities within a trusted, focused network? And that's really what we've created on a global scale. And so whether you're growing regionally, whether you're growing from San Antonio region out to other parts of the world, check us out, check into Chris and find out more about what he's leading for Global Chamber San Antonio, because our chapters across the US and across North America, across Americas and across the world can be hopefully helpful for you as you grow going forward. The future is bright, and we hope and expect that you can take advantage of that going forward. So in conclusion, I'd like to suggest several key things to focus in on. Number one, be global. Be global and unstoppable. You can do this. There's plenty of opportunity. You can make it happen. Just surround yourself with the right people and you can make it happen. Number two, focus. I can't say enough about making sure that you don't get too much on your plate. I know from my own perspective, this week I've had way too much stuff on my plate, and that has strained some of my activities at work and also at home as well. And so I don't know the perfect formula for being able to balance everything. I think all of us struggle to finding that right formula, but certainly focusing is a key thing and something that's so very important. Be ready. And be ready means be flexible, be available to adapt to new opportunities. It's so important today more than ever. It's always been important from a global perspective to be adaptable and flexible, sort of like water going around obstacles. It's more important than ever to be that way. And then the trusted network I mentioned, how many times do you get approached a day by somebody that you don't know on LinkedIn? The digital world is so critically important and is necessary to navigate, but you've got to do it, I think, in a way that makes sense. And so within Global Chamber, we use a digital world, but we have a vetted digital world where our members are known and professional, and the potential clients are safe to approach versus all the other things that we see on a day-to-day basis, including me. I mean, I see a lot of stuff coming in through LinkedIn, and I'm guessing probably most of it is okay, but I don't know, and it takes time to sort through it. Jump into a network like Global Chamber and you can get right to the chase in terms of not having to go through so much of that. And then finally, collaboration is important and more important than ever. So we really appreciate collaborating with both Chris and Marcel's organizations. We appreciate collaborating with Jane and all that she does with local organizations, with global organizations. It does take a village to succeed. So definitely be global, focus, stay ready, be adaptable, be flexible, stay connected. And work your trusted network, work the trusted global tribe at Global Chamber, and you'll be more successful to get from second stage and beyond. Thanks again, Jane, for the opportunity to say a few words.
All right, I guess I'm up next. Thank you, Mr. Brunke. I have to say, Global Chamber has probably more of the second stage type of companies, because quite frankly, in order to do international business, as I was told, you know, a long time ago, it's expensive and there's a lot of legal stuff. But what I found through the Global Chamber is that it's really based on relationships. It's based on having access to people who know things that you need to know. And it actually took away the fear that I think so many businesses have. I've actually, before I joined the Global Chamber as executive director of San Antonio, I was a small business advocate. And in fact, I was appointed by Mayor Julian Castro at the time, Secretary Castro, to be his appointee to the City of San Antonio Small Business Advocacy Committee. I actually lasted for 8 years. I served 3 mayors. And during that journey, I saw the essence of small businesses and what those small businesses would represent to a community. I want to say today that, you know, this second stage presentation is really to help influence our policymakers, those people who are elected that want to help the small business community, and you believe in your heart that by helping an entrepreneur that you're doing. And that's great to help an entrepreneur, but also you have to know how you're helping an entrepreneur compared to a micro company, compared to a second stage company, compared to a large corporation. The different type of help for each of those categories is totally different. And that's why we had the experts that we had on today. Chris Cassange did a great job. He talked about relationships and trust. And at the critical period of time when I served with the City of San Antonio as a volunteer, that was the conversation between the business owners and the city. Likewise, in our county, Bexar County, I see that the small businesses and the businesses, because they aren't all small, are all having that same dialogue with the county. And so relationships and trust is so critical. As we talk to economic development directors across this land today, we want you to now develop a new terminology, second stage companies. We want you to look at the concept of economic gardening, as Christopher Cassange says. Economic gardening may be that new buzzword that may make it relevant for you to understand why Forbes magazine called second stage companies the workhorses of America. And that's because, as Chris said, 15.5% of the businesses that are second stage were yielding 40% of the jobs. And when you look at the return on investment over and over and over, you'll see that this makes sense. And so we want today for you to realize that you have a great opportunity to help second stage companies at this time, probably more in any other time in our history, because as we've experienced through COVID-19, we've seen the loss of loved ones. We've also seen the death of businesses. And so we need those second stage companies that are in those areas of your communities and your metros that can build a stronger team. You want those companies to grow to last, and you want them to be very focused in their expertise. Again, looking at second stage companies is a little bit different. And we want you to know that we want to increase the bottom line for these companies. There's an old adage that one size fits all. That's not true when it comes to business. I found that to be the case. I will say that when I did serve on the City of San Antonio's Small Business Advocacy in 2014, I saw that. I saw that our city had a limit on the discretionary contracts of $1.5 million. And through a motion that I moved and through colleagues, we actually had the city to approve $10 million per discretionary contract to be awarded to small businesses. Why? Because we knew that our small businesses could handle it. We needed to help them grow capacity, and we wanted to create more success and more of the wealth sharing within our own city than ever before. And so I'm proud to say our city did that. I actually had a great chance to meet Chris Cassange at an international economic development conference where Louisiana, the department he leads, actually won a gold medal for entrepreneurship. So when he spoke today, I want you to know that we had the city's best. We had the state of Louisiana's best here today presenting. And I want to thank Jane for reaching out to him, because again, we want to have a very successful model that we can present not only in our local cities, but across the world. Jane, take it away.
Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate it. So where are we at? Basically, what the message that we're trying to convey, this is not business as usual. You know, COVID-19 is bringing extraordinary problems. The economy, jobs, you know, loss of revenue, people getting sick, you know, healthcare issues. And so what I'm saying to and everyone that is listening is that we need to come up with extraordinary solutions. And one of the examples is what Louisiana is doing. Go back to the previous slide, Chris, please. So here's what's really important for me, and I'm going to speak from an experience due to the fact that I am a second stage company, is that for those companies that are surviving, we don't want to be relying on every single purchase order, not knowing whether or not that we're going to get another purchase order tomorrow to be able to keep the doors open. So this is why it's really, really important to be deliberate, not coincidental, but really look at the assets. What are the assets that we have in any given community, and how can we best utilize to scale up the assets that are available with second stage companies? And governments and public agencies must be deliberate, so that when we look at contracting possibilities, oftentimes what I see happening is that there are pennies to total procurement dollars. And so then the opportunities are out in the marketplace. And so now you got micro companies and second stage companies competing for those pennies, when in fact a second stage company wants to compete against a prime contractor. So those are some of the extraordinary situations that I think that we can elaborate on. So the point is, and this is why I wanted Christopher, you know, why second stage companies? And I encourage all of you that are watching this video, go do your own research, look up a second stage company, and you will discover that not only throughout Louisiana, but you have Florida, California, New York, now Georgia's jumping into the bandwagon, and they are making investments strictly on second stage companies. And as Christopher Gonzalez mentioned earlier, can you imagine if every single community said, I am going to be deliberate, I'm not going to be coincidental, and I'm going to make an investment on a second stage company, however it is that we're going to create those programs, the economic impact, 15% of all companies in Louisiana that they went through that program are generating 40% of job. That is considered an economic workhorse, job creation. So, Doug, you hit it right on the nail, Doug, you know, and I'm gonna, you know, we need to listen to those words of second stage companies. We tend to be quite operating with multiple levels, with multiple tasks. So you're exactly right. You have to be focused, must be deliberate, and then also, you know, collaborate with communities to lift us up. Look at this picture. This is what a second stage company feels like. So that you have the guy in the middle, the guy in the yellow is a second stage company. So that he's caught in the middle between a micro startup company, and then he's got the big prime company just putting a knee. So I laugh at this because it really represents what it is that we're trying to do. As mentioned earlier, micro second stage companies want to scale, so that we want to be able to compete against the prime contractors. We want to be a prime contractor, not a subcontractor, but yet oftentimes, because there's a lack of knowledge about the economic impact second stage companies have in our local communities and the assets, we end up instead relegated downward, competing with the micro company. So as Christopher Herring said earlier, one size doesn't fit all. Here in San Antonio, we've been very fortunate. We've had a lot of different grant opportunities. Most of those grant opportunities are for micro businesses. And I'm very, very encouraged that we can start now talking about second stage possibilities of creating some type of programs that can then now allow us to get that knee out of our chest and actually stand side to side with the prime.
I want to basically say that again, this has been a great opportunity just to talk about second stage companies and its impact. And I appreciate you all tuning in. Ultimately, as my takeaway, my goal is to hopefully see an elimination of generational poverty, economic discrimination in marginalized communities. You know, when I look at San Antonio, and I'm glad Marcel was able to join us, Port San Antonio is located in the south quadrant of our city. And it's unfortunate, though, that most of the people who support the port do not come from the poor neighborhoods that Port San Antonio is surrounded by. Our top 10 zip codes in our city are right around the port. And so in order to create a more robust economic development plan for our city and our county, we have to invest in those businesses that are in those areas of generational poverty and areas that have been determined to have economic discrimination. I look at examples like the Maestro Center. The Maestro Center is not a for-profit, but it's located on the west side of our city. Our west side, our south side, our east side have typically been those areas of economic poverty. And so to see a Maestro Center to be a business incubator support and to inspire the community is a great thing. And then also I look at the chairwoman of Global Chamber San Antonio, Crystal Nerio. Dr. Nerio's company, Prosperity Solutions, deals in government contracting, but she made a purposeful decision to place her business on the south side in an old car dealership building. And she is generating all types of buzz, jobs, and new wealth in that area of the city in which most people just simply chose to abandon. So, and then I look at Jane Gonzalez and MedWheels. MedWheels is located again in a historically underdeveloped zone of the east side of San Antonio. And there again, she doesn't have to be there, but she chooses to be there because she knows that if her business can be scaled up, that she can provide more jobs on the ground. And again, her business by nature, by definition, is a second stage company. So therefore, she's able to do much more, as proven by the stats that Forbes has offered, and also as Chris Cassange has provided in terms of the true return on investment. And then again, I look at Global Chamber, and thank you, Doug, for your presentation. Global Chamber is a force multiplier. We are able to help businesses that are in the second stage move further and faster. It's all about relationships and knowledge, and we share both. So I want to thank Jane. I want to thank Chris. I want to thank Marcel. I want to thank my boss, Doug Brunke, for being on today. And right now we'll stop and we'll take a few questions and answers. And I'll ask Doug to help me facilitate this.
Sure. Happy to.
Okay, so Jane, overall, did the messages that you heard today, did it meet your intent in terms of sharing the knowledge about second stage companies? Have we left the audience in the right state?
Well, I think that what I wanted for the audience to be able to take away is the diversity of the approach in economic growth for small companies. One approach that we saw was in Louisiana, where it was deliberate. They were intentional. They are creating a metric. They are making investments on these second stage companies. They are expanding that program. In the case of Port San Antonio, it's more coincidental. They have a great ecosystem. They have resources. They have the connections. They have the assets. And so they do, in fact, scale companies up, but it's done within their own little ecosystem that they have. And then in regards to the Global Chamber, Doug, as he mentioned, it's a phenomenal 525 metro areas. And the diversity, the thing that makes me really excited about the Global Chamber is the diversity of the sectors from all around the world that we are then able to access to help us grow. So I just wanted the audience to take away, the different areas and the different methods of economic growth. But what I want to get out of this, what is the purpose? My purpose is that I would like for local cities and agencies in the middle of this pandemic, where are cities going to get revenue from? Where are counties going to get revenue from? If we continue to take our local procurement dollars and then give these higher percentage to companies that do not have an economic state, like Christopher said, in marginalized communities, how are we ever going to grow? How are we ever going to make a difference? It must be deliberate.
That makes a lot of sense. So you're calling for companies to do certain things, and you're calling for communities to do certain things. Already, we had the presentation earlier this week about San Antonio and the region there through the EDF. A lot of really good work. So it seems like they're doing a lot of attraction. They're helping support companies locally. What should companies do? What would you suggest that what's the next step? Whether they're struggling or if they're at the last gasp, that's a different story. There's a whole different set of things there. But if they've still got a chance and they've got the opportunity to move forward, what's kind of the ABCs, the 1, 2, 3s of what they should be doing right now?
Well, and that's a phenomenal question, Doug. And the city of San Antonio is the San Antonio Economic Development Foundation. When Jenna Herrera Sacel presented, Texas is doing a lot in terms of expanding economic activity, economic growth. I'm very encouraged locally here that we do have a retention expansion component, in that if we can look at what are some of the additional programs that we could perhaps implement. Look at the model like in Louisiana, mentor protege programs, having multiple training sessions, getting involved with cross collaboration. So, and it's not only in San Antonio, this is across all of America right now, right? If second stage companies are considered the workhorses, if we are considered the workhorses in the middle of this pandemic, when we have so much economic loss, if cities and counties across the United States, even across the world, if they were more deliberate in scaling up a second stage company, not to compete against the micro company, but having us compete at the prime level, we have the ability, like Christopher said earlier, we are embedded in marginalized communities. We just had this whole issue about Black Lives Matter. A lot of second stage companies are physically located inside of this poverty-stricken minority communities, so that my hope and my desire is that if we scale up these second stage companies, we can actually transform our communities. We no longer have behind Port San Antonio, the top 10% poverty of the United States. So this is really encouraging. We're doing a lot of great work. I think a lot of people are doing a lot of great work. As Christopher from Louisiana said, you can't do this overnight. It takes time. It takes a tribe. It takes collaboration. So I think I'm looking at this, like you said earlier, 2021, you might want to put on your shades. Future is so bright. You're going to have to put on your shades.
We'll definitely work on that. I think we have time for one more question. And Chris, I think you've got a question for Chris has a question for Chris, I think. Christopher, are you there?
Yeah, the question actually was from Marcel, and in the Q&A it asked, How many of the companies in Port San Antonio are tech-oriented, and are any of them selling outside of the U.S.?
So the exact percentage of companies that would be classified as categorized as tech-oriented, I cannot say right now, but I will say with confidence that the vast majority are, by virtue of the technologies and tools that they use in their day-to-day operations. So whether they're involved in some form of advanced manufacturing, additive manufacturing that uses very sophisticated, tools and equipment within it. Certainly those that are involved in cybersecurity that support our government entities on this campus. I will even go so far as to say the aircraft maintenance operators and providers here on this campus are very much tech oriented by virtue of the data, what we call the data processing, if you will, processing of the vast volumes of data that they use to make their maintenance operations more efficient. When we get into more predictive maintenance and things that, again, reduce costs to the government, reduce costs to their customers. And how many of them are doing business outside of the country? Again, I can't say for certain how many are, but we have several companies that have been highlighted recently that are. I mentioned Knight Aerospace earlier. I mentioned Plus One Robotics and the fact that, through FedEx, they're serving customers globally and reaching customers globally. There were write-ups about them in China, France, and elsewhere just within the past couple of months and about their technology. There's a company called Xyrex, which is based out of the Netherlands. It's a large multi-story laser that is used to depaint aircraft and other heavy equipment that has a presence here. But it's the technology that was developed here in San Antonio at Southwest Research Institute, but their target audience is global, and they're actually globally headquartered outside of the U.S. So we have many instances, and our customers serve a broad audience of customers throughout the U.S. and certainly around the world.
Thank you so much. I want to thank Chris and Marcel and Jane for your efforts today. I want to always thank Doug for giving us this platform. I'm going to share a couple of quick slides with you just to close this event. But as Doug said, be global and unstoppable. We had recently a really great event that you can find on YouTube if you even Google search it, or on the Global Chamber, the International State of the Metro, where Mayor Ron Nirenberg provided his message to the international or the global community about who we are as a San Antonio. We also just had a meeting this week with the San Antonio Economic Development Foundation, who also told us how they were recruiting for new companies to come into San Antonio. And our events can be found at globalchamber.org. We have probably more events happening for one chamber in any one day. Feel free to go on there. Members can sign up for free for most events, and non-members can pay a little bit of a fee, but that encourages you to join. And again, we want to grow together. I'd like to thank you on behalf of the Global Chamber San Antonio, Dr. Chris Donetti, our chairwoman, and Jorge Canavati, he's gonna love that, as our chair-elect. So again, thank you very much for attending today, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you again for the invite, everybody.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Marcel.
Chris, I just want to say thank you to all the panelists. Thank you for your time. It's really during very, very busy, and from the bottom of my heart, I just really appreciate you participating. Thank you so much. God bless.
Wear your shades for 2021.